My earliest memory of LCFS was going there for the picnics. My mother was a volunteer. She never missed an opportunity to help there, and she never missed a picnic. So she took all of us kids, and away we went on a Sunday to celebrate. At a time in the afternoon, you could go into the orphanage, and there would be an area where the very small children, not the babies, but the toddlers, were behind a little fence like, and they were all dressed in white. And you could stand there and watch them. And I kept telling my mother, call that person, ask her if we can take one home. But she never did. So I thought I'll do it myself when I grow up, and I did. I married Bob Berkey on September 22nd, 1945. Had 5 biological children. And when our youngest was 5 years old, that's when I called LCFS. I said we were interested in adopting. And then she said, well, how many children do you have? And I said 5. And she said, oh, no. If you have that many children, you don't want to consider adoption. And I said, well, we can do it. I want to come and talk to you about that. And so it wasn't too long after that we received the son that we adopted, Gerry. And he was he was 1 month away from being 3. He had been placed as an adopted child, and that couple had 1 child, a little girl. So they brought him back with the words, we thought our little girl wanted a brother because she asked for one, but she wants a dog. So we want to return Jeff. And that's when LCFS called and said, we have this little boy who was just returned. He has some problems. Maybe you don't want to consider that because it might be an upheaval in your family or something. But I said, no, bring him. After I had him around the house, I found that there were many avenues where he must have been abused. I was scrubbing a floor in one of our bedrooms, so I wanted to go in the closet and wipe it out, and I started to close the door. I pulled a pail of water in with me, and he was with me. I always kept him right by my feet, and he was with me, and I went to close the door, and he just started crying so hard. I thought, oh, I know. He must have been put in a closet or something, and you could tell that he had lived a very, I don't know, I don't want to use the word torture, but it certainly wasn't a loving life that he had. So then we were told by his caseworker at LCFS that he would have problems in school and that he wouldn't be able to achieve, they didn't feel. But it didn't turn out to be the case. And when he got into high school, he really blossomed and he really got top grades. And then I sent a copy of his grades over to Carol at LCFS. See, this is the child who wasn't going to be able to make it in the scholastic world. But everything really turned out well, and I think when you have a child like that, you just have to be patient. And I think once you make them feel that they're worth something and that their life can be shared with other people. So I think he caught on. He's the principal of a Lutheran school in Maryland. And so he went to college, he married, he has 6 children. So he has a happy life. I took foster babies for a little while after we had Jeff with the intent, and the LCFS knew it, intent that we were wanting to adopt a baby girl. And so then we adopted Maren. In that period before we got Jeff and adopted him, we did have several of the foster babies that we had. And we probably had as many as 20 in that short period of years, because there were a lot of babies then, and there were very few foster homes, and sometimes I would get 2 or 3 at a time. And I remember one winter night, babies were born in Eau Claire, and so these 2 young caseworkers drove up to Eau Claire, picked up the babies, and it's like 20 below, and they're driving in this storm. And they called and said, we'll be late because it's storming, but we can't drive fast because of the babies. Well, they got there at like 2 in the morning, and here they had the back seat, 3 little newborns. I have one picture, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and there is a baby in a baby seat on the table, and I'm holding a bottle in her mouth. And then in a buggy over here is another baby, and I got my foot going on the buggy. And then there was a 3rd baby in a little high chair that I was feeding by spoon every once in a while when I didn't have to jerk the little one in the buggy. So sometimes it was busy, but that was no problem because my children were growing up then and were getting, you know, in the high school years, and they were very willing all the time to take care of a baby. Bob and I were always active in church, so we sang in the choir, and that meant every Thursday night we went to choir practice, and every Sunday morning we sang. And so the children knew that Thursday night they were going to babysit, and Sunday morning they all went into the cry room with the baby, and we sang with the choir. So they were used to it, but my oldest son always made the remark that he graduated from Concordia College with a baby on his shoulder. See, he lived at home going through Concordia, but he also, if we went off to choir practice or anything else, then he would be holding the baby when we got home. And said, oh, this one is crying. So I'm glad you're back. So they were very helpful, though. They were good kids. And when they got married, they all followed suit and all adopted right away. My oldest son, they adopted 4 children. And then my oldest daughter, they adopted 5 children. And it's gone from the generation of our children to our grandchildren. And if you look up there in the 3rd row, you'll see 5 children. Those are my granddaughter's children, and they're all adopted. So it continues. I have a history of joining an organization and all of a sudden find myself president of the organization, but it's a service that I like to do. When I joined the auxiliary, I attended all the auxiliary meetings, and at that time I always had a baby, so I'd bring the baby along, and it was just kind of a natural thing to be involved in that way. And so when they asked me to be president, I thought, well, I guess I have to say yes to this one again. So I did. But when you join an auxiliary of an organization, you're working with people who love what the organization is doing. So you meet a lot of wonderful people that way. And many people that I met were people who had adopted children from LCFS. So in 1974, I was invited to be the first female board member of LCFS. And they said the board is all male, and we would like to know if you would like to serve on the board. And I said, sure, I'll give it a try. Well, when I came in the first night and see this table full of all men, They didn't look too excited. So I thought, okay, this means I gotta, for about the first 6 months, I gotta keep my mouth shut. Don't give them any ideas. So I don't know if I broke open bars for other women or what, but it all worked well. LCFS brings children to mind. But then when I read what we do now at LCFS, you know, the mental health and all of the other programs that we have for people who are hurting, the focus is really changing to meet the needs of the community.